Hello, sixth graders. This is Mr. Scrow, and welcome back to another music lesson. Miss Smith has created our next lesson on the Baroque period. Today, she will be discussing how polyphony expanded during this time. Let's get started.
Let's review. We started our musical learning this year discussing Gregorian chant. These chants were in unison, which means there were no harmonies. Everyone performing the chant was singing the same thing at the same time. During the Renaissance period, composers expanded melodies by writing for different voices or even instruments. This created polyphony, which we said meant many sounds. As we are learning about each time period, we are noticing that music is evolving and changing during each time period. It is very important to note and bring to your attention that composers are building upon the basics of the previous time period and not eliminating those basics. As music evolves even past the Baroque period, we will see that same concept, building upon what we already know musically and not getting rid of those things which we've already come across. We are just improving them. By the end of today's lesson, you will be able to understand how polyphony expanded during the Baroque period. You will also be able to understand what a fugue is and how it is composed. During the Baroque period, polyphony changed in comparison to the Renaissance period. Let's discuss the following questions. Raise your hand or put your ideas in the chat. Today, we will be talking about ways music was composed during the Baroque time period. We will discuss a form of counterpoint today. What do you think counterpoint is? How do you think it is used in the Baroque period? Put your answers in the chat or raise your hand. Counterpoint is the art of weaving together independent melodies in order to produce a harmonious piece of music. Johann Sebastian Bach was a genius at using counterpoint during the Baroque period. You've probably performed an example of counterpoint before in your music classes. Think back to your elementary school days or in music class last year. You've also heard an example of counterpoint just a few weeks ago from Mr. Scrow. Can you guess what one of the most basic forms of counterpoint is? Here's a hint. You may have sung counterpoint when singing a song about rowing a boat. One of the most basic forms of counterpoint is a round. Here's the example that Mr. Scrow gave us a few weeks ago using Easy Virtual Choir.
Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 your boat life is down the stream. Merrily, 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 your boat life is down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. So all rounds are counterpoint.
A fugue is a way of composing music that uses two or more voices. Fugues do not have to be vocal music. In fact, Bach wrote fugues for instruments such as the organ. When we say voices, we simply mean a melodic line. A fugue is built on a subject or a musical theme. This theme is first introduced by one voice or melodic line. After the subject is performed, it is answered by one of the other voices in a new musical key. Every time a new voice is introduced, that main subject is first heard. Now, you might be thinking, how is that different from a round, Miss Smith? Because a round has multiple voices, and each time a new voice starts, it uses that same subject that was first introduced. I'm glad you asked. Notice how I mentioned that the subject is answered by one of the voices in a new musical key? That means the subject doesn't start on the same pitch as it did before. Also, once the subject is performed and the new voice enters, that part goes off and performs a melody that won't be heard by any of the other voices. This helps to create and expand polyphony. If you are thinking to yourself, this sounds a little confusing, don't worry. Let's watch a video that shows you how a fugue is performed using visuals. Now, let's listen to an example of a fugue written in the style of Bach with a more modern melody. Here is the subject of our fugue. As you listen, raise your hand on camera when you hear the subject being played in any voice. Next week, we will celebrate Bach's 336th birthday. You will get to compose a piece of music in the style of Bach with the help of AI, which is artificial intelligence. Next week is also map testing in our buildings. Our schedule will be different from each day, so you may not have a music class next week. If not, no worries. I will post the activity we will do, and if you happen to create a piece using the app we will be using on Google, I will give you bonus points. See you next week for our Bach Birthday Bash.